And on that note, why don't we just go ahead and get started? And when people trickle in, they'll trickle on in. And then, of course, they'll see what we have to say later on. So for who has made it in so far, welcome. Welcome to our little fireside chat. Learn a little bit more about Stamped AI and how Stamped is here to complete your app stack. And we are the missing piece. We do believe it, and we're excited to let you know how exactly we plan to do that. So the agenda for today, I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then we're going to go right into the chat with Simon and Tanya, and then we're going to have a live Q&A if we have time. In the meantime, though, feel free to drop any of your questions in the questions box. That way we could either answer it as we go or save it to the end, again, should we have any time. So yeah, feel free at any point to drop them in there, and we'll be happy to help. So really quickly, my name is Kinga. You may have recognized me from Dex and or Payment Evolution, but I am now in sales and strategy here at Stamped AI. With us is Simon Langlois. Did I say that right, Simon? I'm not French.
We'll be fine for today.
Okay. And Simon is a CPA, MBA, CA, CEO, and co-founder of Stamped AI. And he is going to be here to answer all of your questions about Stamped. And of course, the one that doesn't need any introductions is Tanya Hilts. We all know her. We've all seen her around, and she's going to be here to ask Simon all the questions that you probably have about Stamped, and we'll take it from here without any further ado. So here you go, Tanya. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kinga. And yeah, thank you guys for asking me to be a part of this. I think it's great. So just to let everybody know, Simon and I we first had a conversation a couple of years ago. And I've realized this past week, and I just said to Kinga before you came on the call, Simon, I didn't think I actually got it. I thought when we first were talking, I was thinking something different. So I don't know if you've changed what you do from there and added to, because I thought it was just a year-end review process. And I'm like, well, my internal people can do this. Okay, we'll look at it. And I don't think I actually got it. So first off, why don't you tell everybody what Stamped actually does?
Right. So I think it's not what we're doing that I've changed over time. It's more my ability to explain it properly that has improved, by exposing myself in more pitching opportunity. So basically what Stamped is a tech-enabled firm that mostly focus on providing year-end compliance, both on tax side and accounting side. So we're there to support the bookkeepers and the accountant in a tech-enabled way in producing year-end deliverables, basically for the bookkeepers and accountants clients, such as corporate tax return and financial statement. So basically that's what we're focused on.
Perfect. And that's great because when like I say, I first thought it was the process to get the file ready to go to the accountant. That's like, well, I'm like, we've got our internal processes, and that's where it didn't make sense to me. So I'm very glad that it's been explained, and that it is different. So essentially you will do the year-end review, which again, you're going to train us, our clients as well, because you're still going to expect the files to come to you in a certain clean way. Otherwise, it could end up costing more, right? So it's, still have to look at that there still could be a different charge if your files are messy and there's more to clean up.
Yeah, so obviously as a tech-enabled CPA firm, we cannot apply the garbage in, garbage out, right? We need to, if garbage in, we just need to do more work on the books to make sure that they comply with the tax regulation and the accounting principle. But really what we wanted to do is to kind of complement and complete the, the broad accounting tech ecosystem that has been built over the past decade, mostly supported by QuickBooks and Xero, right? So as a bookkeeper, you have a large set of tools to, perform the accounting process throughout the year, from data entry to payroll and book closing. But really when it comes to year end, the only alternative the market has right now is to go at a traditional CPA firm that will use legacy technology to provide those services. So our goal is to really, just complement your tech stack and make sure that we can maintain an efficient process throughout the full accounting cycle, basically cloud-based from end to end.
Right. And then, so I think the question that people would have, and I already have the answer, so I'm going to ask this, and then of course add on to it. If like if I think further clarification is needed, but who is your ideal client? Who is your ideal client?
Yeah.
What's your use case scenarios?
So obviously we are seeking, tech-enabled bookkeeper and accountant. So those that have already embraced cloud technology. So basically any bookkeeper that is a QuickBooks Pro Advisor or Xero Pro Advisor that, really embrace the efficiency that those new technologies have brought in their firm over the past decade are the firm that we're going after, because basically they understood and they saw the opportunity to augment their capabilities with technology, and we're there to provide further efficiency and further peace of mind with them through a new piece of technology to complement their tech stack.
Perfect. And I love the fact that, and King and I spoke about this ahead of time as well, that, it's not just bookkeeping firms, it's bookkeeping and accounting firms. So a bookkeeping firm could use that. And I know right now through COVID, essentially a lot of accounting firms that didn't traditionally offer bookkeeping have started offering bookkeeping services. And some of those bookkeepers have felt, they're now trying to solicit our business and, tell the clients they can do a better job and undercut and all of this stuff. So if that is a concern, this gives another option that, yes, if you've got relationships with accountants, you can do that, or you can work with you. And that keeps everything in-house because you deal with the client, and the client is the bookkeeping firm, correct?
Right, exactly. So we really consider the bookkeeping firm as our main client. Obviously, as per our professional regulation, we need to have a relationship with the business owner to a certain extent, but we really keep that to a minimal aspect, just to meet professional compliance and really focus on the relationship with the bookkeeper, which is basically our ideal customer profile that we want to provide value to.
Awesome. And then from the accountant perspective, because I don't want the accountants out there watching going, okay, great, these guys are now going to take business away. You can still provide services to them as your outsourcing services so that they can bring on more business without having to hire full-time accountants in-house, correct?
Exactly. So the goal is to, on one end, enable the bookkeeping firm and make sure that they can provide a more complete business offering to their own clients, but also support existing CPA firms that are just suffering from staff shortage, and that, basically there's also a huge lack of technology in this industry. So like the typical stack of a CPA firm that will provide year-end services is caseware and on-premise version of tax prep. So we're just trying to bring year-end process in the cloud, and we believe that our goal is just to have as many people using our technology to just overall decrease the general pressure that year-ends bring on the market. So on one end, we can support bookkeepers with the year-end of their client, but also support existing CPA firm in just having a more efficient year-end process for their own business owner clients.
Well, and I think that's really good to take a look at, because now it's like from the accounting firm perspective, they can grow in whatever form they want to, without having to, again, take on a full-time employee. It gives them that opportunity at that point, because, you look at hiring a full-time CPA, that's going to be a lot. And especially then you're like, well, I can't hire somebody in until I have the work to justify it. And then to get the work to justify it, they have to work a lot of extra hours before they can hire somebody. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant vicious circle. And you've just solved that problem for them.
Yeah, the goal is to effectively like decouple the need to hire and the volume of business they can manage. At some point, like they will face that anyway. But yeah, it's really about decoupling the need for having a staff for every, let's say, 5 new clients that you're on board, because it's to just reduce the overhead to manage a given client for its year-end activities. And by kind of modernizing the way they do it, they can also hire like more broadly. They're not necessarily looking for a local hire in their immediate geographic situation. So it kind of add more flexibility to their business as well.
Right. So now the next question that I have, that's a perfect lead into this for you, is where are your CPAs located? Because, we want to make sure that if you're outsourcing outside of Canada, then people are aware of that. But I believe you're all in Canada. All your CPAs are physically in Canada, correct?
Yeah. Right now, our team, our entire team, both on the engineering side and CPA side, are all based in Canada, but we're looking to leverage, staffing resource abroad as well. But they will be full-time on our team, so they will just be, employee of STAMP located elsewhere in the world.
Okay. So
they will
knowing
not be like
Canadian
contractors.
compliance
Yeah.
and all of
Exactly.
that. Awesome. Awesome. No, and so yeah, so that's good because I know there's, there's obviously that thing with the outsourcing. Of course, if you're outsourcing, is it just to save money? Is that,
Mhm.
is the quality there? Is the, the paying a good living wage and, all of that? That's something that's always.
Yeah, no, that's a good question about, let's say, the ethical of hiring abroad, but it's not necessarily a matter of cost. It's mostly just a matter of availability, because here, for our use case specifically, we need to find CPA that want to pursue a career in certification or year-end compliance, which the number is decreasing every year because, a vast majority of CPA prefer to go in industry and become controller or head of finance for businesses.
Right.
So we are facing the truth of having a very niche offering. So it's not every CPA that want to work in this field. So at STEM, we mostly come from Big Four background. So like when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, we were leveraging our colleagues all over the world, but most specifically in Poland and in India. So like we know that there's trained accountants in the world in Canadian GAAP and Canadian tax regulation from this specific situation. So like this is something that we will definitely try to embrace and on board with.
Right. Perfect. No, and that's great. And that's really good to know. And a lot of us are finding that there's, even the bookkeeping firms looking to hire the talent. The talent pool isn't here. I just had a conversation with somebody before. You're either paying a fortune, $30, $35 an hour for somebody who has zero practical experience and just walked out and feels that they're worth it, but then you still have to train them on the technology, and the technology is very different. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is that, like I've just got one of my clients who had a new hire go in and work on their file, and it's taken us 10 hours to fix what they did. And they weren't in there that long. And she said, but she's a CPB with 15 years experience. Okay, but if she's never used the technology, that's just like taking a mechanic who's never worked on, on computerized engines and saying, here, go ahead and fix it. Debits and credits might be the same, but it's all of the different languages. So yeah, it's great to know that, you're using QBO because QBO is working on their working papers. I don't work in Xero, so I can't speak for Xero's working papers, but I know QBO is really working on that, within there and doing that. And it's very frustrating from a bookkeeping perspective when I have to send it to an accountant. If somebody's already got an accountant they work with and they're like, just send me everything in Excel. I'm like, okay. Right. And they're like asking all these questions. I'm like, but I've given you access to QBO. And they're like, well, no, you answer this. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So they obviously have never signed into QBO.
No, exactly. And it's like a growing trend is like CPAs, just like any other profession, is kind of getting older. There's a lot of practitioners that don't want to, adjust the way they work with how the market have evolved. And they say, I work in Excel. I will ask all the person I'm collaborating with to adapt with my Excel methodology. But in reality, we need to grow and kind of adapt with where the world is right now. And the world is on cloud-based technology. So basically, our goal is to be system agnostic. We work with QuickBooks. We work with Xero. But we work also with FreshBooks, some Sage product, Microsoft product, and NetSuite. So our goal is just to build a year-end validation data pipeline that works with basically any commonly used cloud-based ERP or accounting system. So like bookkeepers and accountants can keep to work with the solution they prefer, and our platform will just integrate and remove the hassle of having to extract all of that in Excel and just be more helpful to the accountant and bookkeepers community.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I know everybody out there is asking as well then is, and I already know the answer to this, but so if you're dealing, with us, the one thing that people could perceive, I guess, is maybe a downfall of working with you, and so you can tell them it's not and why it's not, is that, if we're a bookkeeping firm and we send you an accountant, that accountant is going to give specific advice and whatnot. And if you're working with us, somebody might be concerned that they're not going to get that type of, consulting or guidance. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, so basically, we're a tech-enabled firm that still rely on humans, right? Because I think the strength of Stamped is the human in the loop model that we're building. So as we build more features and efficiency with the technology, our CPO will just have more time to, handle very specific questions and provide support to the bookkeepers and their clients in, answering any of their concerns regarding compliance. So the goal is just to eradicate the mundane and clerical task of year-end processes and maintain the human experience of, being advised and being understood by a real human. Basically, it's not only technology driven.
Right. So that if there was a question or something that you guys noticed on going through saying, hey, this person took this much out in salary, and it was over the CPP, they took 100,000 salary, maybe consider switching it to a partial salary and then partial dividends. That's the type of advice that you guys would be giving back if you notice things, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So the goal of the technology is to kind of identify the potential errors, but then, how to fix them will mostly rely on the human judgment behind it. So it's just helping our CPA be more efficient in identifying the potential problem and identifying more potential problem than what other traditional CPA could, because right now there's no technology to support their risk appreciation or risk assessment on a year-end file, right? So they just discuss with client, and there's like this amount of transaction that they need to go through over a 12-month, that represent a 12 months time frame. While our technology, once integrated with the accounting system, kind of fetch the information every week. So like we kind of stay always sync with the accounting system, and so we're more prompt to identify potential problem for once year-end comes. So like we address them right away. So it's it just provide a much more leaner experience to everyone involved.
So then a quick follow-up to that, and we do have a question in the Q&A, and I will get to that in a moment. I just want to do a nice segue over here. So a quick follow-up to that then would be an ideal scenario of coming in and using your services would then enable the bookkeeper or the accountant, both of them, to really focus more on advisory services, whereas a lot of people want to go. If this can come off and we can work with you to find that, then we can, you can really kind of push the advisor services more in the advice. Is that what you see as well?
Yep, that's correct. Our goal is to kind of, instead of doing like one big year-end reconciliation and closing process, our goal is to kind of keep the book year-end ready all year round. So like we can provide support for the bookkeepers and accountant to kind of transition to a more advisory role, because all the clerical tasks will be basically handled by the application.
Awesome. And that's good to know from a bookkeeping perspective, because an accountant, an accountant's going to sit there and have those conversations anyway, but you're right, they have to do some manual digging. So if you can make that easier for them, then that's great. From the bookkeeper perspective, that is some type of business that, there is an opportunity for both the bookkeeper and the accountant to work together on it. But if the bookkeeper doesn't step in and try to do some of those advisories, we're going to lose all of that to the accountant, and the accountant will happily take it as part of their year end and do that. But it just gives us a chance to be able to work a little bit better on the advisory side. So I really like that. And again, how you're going to help with the guidance, not just process it and hand it back. Right. So
exactly. And we want to, to a certain extent, obviously, we're not becoming like bookkeeper coaching services, but we're there to support this transition, because this is something we often hear, in industry conference from QuickBooks Connect or Scaling New Heights or basically IPBC Ignite, that bookkeepers need to transition to being an advisor, but like the advisory role is not, something you learn on the go or like from yourself. You need to be exposed and have access to maybe a more senior mentor or more senior professional that will have some complementing skills and knowledge. So we're basically there to support that and allow the bookkeepers to kind of go a step beyond what they can do in terms of advisory, because they will be able to rely on us to fix some situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And advisory, just to kind of go a step further on that, because I know I have conversations almost weekly with people on that. Advisory is whenever you're answering a question. So advisory isn't just cash flow. Advisory isn't just this. So again, advisory might be you guys pick up that, hey, this might be best to change the salaries, do a combination of salaries and dividends. That is now advisory. That becomes that. So you're right. It absolutely opens the door to that. And I think that's awesome. Again, from both the accountant side, because maybe it's going to give the accountant more time to focus on advisory services rather than the compliance services, right? So, no, that's awesome. Okay, so Leslie's got a couple of questions in here. So what is the ratio of client to CPA?
Right, so right now we're close to a ratio of 45 customer per CPA on our team. And our goal for the end of this year is to grow the ratio roughly to around 100. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit on our product roadmap that will allow us such an increase. And we evaluate from our discussion with other practitioners, because it's hard to find, hard data on this, because it's kind of a private market. But the industry average is close to 20 to 30 customer per CPA, basically, in other traditional firms. So far, technology has kind of brought 2x efficiency, 50% efficiency compared to a traditional firm. And as we keep executing the product vision, we want to grow this ratio up to almost close to 200 clients per staff on team.
And that sounds like a lot, but I think, what first popped in my mind is, oh my gosh, that's a lot. I know, bookkeeping, it's, we're in 25, but it's the type of work that's being done. If you guys are not dealing with the client and the client is the bookkeeping or accounting firm, and you're not doing that day-to-day stuff, it's the compliance work and just keeping an eye and waiting for things to spit out. So, while that sounds like a lot, you have to look at, the work that's being done, and you're not communicating directly with the client, and that takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So communicating with the client adds a lot of burden. And it's also, an aspect that has driven our go-to-market and really leverage the accountant and bookkeepers community, because it's much more efficient for us to communicate with educated users than just, trying to explain accounting and tax problem to a plumber entrepreneur, or basically someone who has received any business training or accounting training at all. So yeah, it just simplifies our life to scale through the accountants and the bookkeepers community.
Well, and that's exactly, because an accountant might have a lower ratio. They might have a 1-75 or 1-15. I don't know that ratio, but it might be lower. But that's exactly it. It takes into that time that they're advising directly to the client. They're doing all of this other stuff, and you're taking the compliance and administrative work off and not focusing on that part. You're advising to us, and then we're having those conversations with the non-accountant speaking people, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Excuse me, exactly. So you're focusing on that. So now another question that I know we kind of talked about this, and King has answered this online, but so what is it's how long does it take to produce the file? So, and I know this is going to vary, but we had that conversation with what's the average time, for a file?
So a lot of what have been described is still a vision, a reality. So the reality is that, yes, we benefit from a web application that kind of streamline the collaboration between the different parties involved in the year-end process, but we still have a decent amount of manual work to do on our end. So right now, the lead time to produce a file is longer than what we would like, but it is still pretty decent. And obviously there's the timing of the year. So right now for a corporate tax return, if everything is ready to roll and we have all the information needed, it could be done within a week, but then it depends also on the level of assurance. So if someone wanted an audit today, not sure if we could even take it on board right now because of the high demand at this period of the year. But so it's a combination. It's a combination of different factors, such as the scope of work needed, and the level of assurance, and the timing of the year. So it really depends. But so a few days for a corporate tax return only, up to a few weeks for a full scope audit.
Yeah. And I think when we spoke, and that was only what, a week ago, week and a half ago, and you said it was about 3 weeks with the timing of the year right now. And of course, yes, you're busier and higher timing, but that was still pretty good. That was still pretty impressive for that turnaround. And of course, there's many factors into that, is how quickly we're getting back to you, how clean the file is when it gets to you, all of that. Now, do you have, and if you don't have this, and it's great to add to your list, is a checklist to help ensure when the file comes to you, we've got all this stuff done. I know internally we have a very, very clean checklist, excuse me, and whatnot that we do internally, but is that something that you provide of here's what we expect when the file comes through?
And we'll be sharing that with everyone on the market shortly, because it is a recurring question from our bookkeeping partners. Basically, they would like to have some sort of checklist that scope our expectation in order to better scope scope their year-end procedures that they need to do before sending the file to us. So this will be released within the next few days, weeks by Kinga. So awesome. We're kind of working on it and finalizing it.
Well, in that way, and I think that would make your guys' work easier as well, too, because you've got it out there and here's double check, is all this stuff done, so that you're not spending time going back and forth with missing information or incomplete information.
Yeah. And it's also going to be part of the app. We're working on a kind of standardized year-end procedures that will disclose all the tasks that we're expecting our bookkeeping partners to have performed before year-end or at year-end, and then all the tasks that we need to do. So it's going to provide a more transparent process for bookkeepers and business owner on where is the engagement file, because right now on the market, you send the trial balance and you just don't know when it's going to come back with the files and the required documents to be signed. So we're just trying to bring visibility and transparency along the way.
No, that's awesome. And so I'm looking at your website, and there's a lot of other services that you have that you've definitely expanded on since we last spoke as well. So it looks like you can do, you can help with cleanup jobs. If somebody, wants to take that, you can help with the bookkeeping on the cleanup jobs. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is something that we will extensively start to offer as we build more tooling. But basically, the goal is to identify all the areas where there might be problem with the accounting. So we'll be able to surface a lot of area where bookkeepers or ACPA should invest this time in order to fix the books, either to reconcile the opening balance with the prior year engagement, or just validate the completeness when doing a transition from, a legacy accounting system to QBO. You could be able to kind of make sure that all the data that has been imported in QBO is complete.
Okay, so that would be a review of the data versus cleaning up the books and entering. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
You would not enter into QuickBooks and fix the account.
But you'll do a diagnostic review.
Yeah, it will be more like of a diagnostic cleanup.
Okay, awesome. And that's good to know with that. Now, one thing that I see that isn't on here that I know I have a need for, and because I see you guys do the T2s, the charity returns, which is great. There's a few other ones. I don't know what they are, so obviously I don't deal with them, like the T5013s, the C017s and whatnot. But what about T3, the trust returns?
Yep. So if they're not in the list, they are. So basically the only one that we don't really want to deal with is the T1 for individual.
Okay.
We really focus on corporate and business needs. So trust, partnership, non-for-profit organization, and for-profit organization.
Okay. No, and that's awesome. Yeah, because I did see that that it said filing T5s and T3s, but it wasn't clear if that was filing like the T3 slips or filing of a T3 trust return. So yeah.
So it's both. We'll be issuing the T3 that will go to the beneficiary of the trust, and we'll be filing the trust filing as well.
Oh, in combination with it. Okay. And that's really good, because there's a lot of, bookkeepers or, even accountants who, let's say newer accountants who maybe don't have their CPA or whatnot, or just tax practitioners that are doing the taxes. And I know I did try with one person. I knew them, so I didn't charge them. I knew them very personally, and I tried, and the whole thing was wrong. I messed up the T3, the return itself, not the filing of the T3 slip, but the return. I messed it up. And so that's really good to know. If you've got somebody who does personal taxes, that very well could happen. We've got two people that are in that situation right now. And that's, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, it's going to come up soon. And, so I'm doing the deceased return this year because they just passed away in 2021. But for 2022, there will be a trust and it will be continuing on. And so that's great to know that, again, those are extra services that can be used to complement somebody who does that now.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay. So Leslie's got another question. Can anyone go with your services that are not using a bookkeeper? So does the bookkeeper have the opportunity to promote that their work is stamped? So I think those are two questions. So would you deal with somebody directly? I think that's it. Can anyone go with your services that isn't using a bookkeeper? So I think that's if company like ABC, Acme Inc. or whatever decided to come to you and use you directly and not use an accountant or not use a bookkeeper. I think that's what you're meaning. And please clarify, Leslie, if that's not what you mean. Yeah, she says yes. So would you take them on as a client, or are you only dealing with accountants and bookkeepers?
Yes, we it's not like our core acquisition channel, but sometimes through our SEO and marketing effort, like we do onboard entrepreneurs that do not have bookkeepers, because some are just accounting literate, so they do a decent job. Or when we know, when we have an entrepreneur that is not assigned to one of our existing partner, and the books need rework before we start working, we just refer this entrepreneur to our ecosystem of partners. So it's really like a mutual relationship where we support you with the year end of your client, but we can also add new clients to your business, because we oftentimes receive inbound from entrepreneurs that do not use the service of a bookkeeping firm. So we do a mutual referral.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that, because one thing, again, that when I'm talking to bookkeepers that I hear a lot are if they're dealing with an accounting firm that, has started offering bookkeeping services, that can actually impact the relationship there, because they're like, well, I send the clients to them all the time. I get nothing in return. So that can be a little frustrating. So it's good to know that you're like, nope, we're not going to cross this line. We're going to refer back to our existing client. So it is a nice reciprocal agreement. And that's really nice, because that's where it's really difficult, if unless you have an agreement with an accounting firm. But then that's it. If they start to offer bookkeeping services, why would they refer out, right?
Right. And why would you keep refer year end to this CPA? Because it's just a matter of time before they kind of take on the full relationship with the client. So it's also a threat for bookkeepers' business when the CPA they typically work with start offering bookkeeping services. So it's we have a very different view. At STEM, we believe that in the near future, there will be no more place for accountants doing a little bit of everything, but not performing very high in all those individual tasks. So we really want to specialize and become the best in the world for year-end services. So we will solely focus on this, very limited scope of service, and deploy all of our engineering efforts to build the most efficient technology for year-end compliance services. So I think it's one of the biggest problems where you have small accounting firm that does a bit of everything, but they're not experts in one field. It can definitely be reflected in the quality of their work or just their overall, availability and expertise.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that this definitely offers opportunities for the bookkeeper to learn as well, not just from this list that you guys are working on, but also, again, with the advisory, and the relationship back and forth. Because I know sometimes, with accountants, if they're not an accountant that I have a very close relationship with, the only time I learn is when I see the journal entries. I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this? And some bookkeepers, are intimidated or don't want to call the accountant and ask the accountant what they could have done better. And again, it depends on the closeness of the relationship. And so it helps us, because then we can do everything better again with the learning as well. So that's really good for that. So then the second part of Leslie's question, does the bookkeeper have the opportunity to promote their work as stamped? So how does that work? Because you mentioned something earlier that for compliance, we do have to, or maybe it was Kinga, we talked about it offline, that yes, they have to do that. So do we have to say that it's stamped? Is it recommended that we say? How are your existing bookkeeping firms or accounting firms working that in?
Yeah, so it has to be disclosed actually, especially if like we are doing, restricted services for CPA, such as compilation engagement or review engagement, because you could be sanctioned, not sanctioned, but like have a penalty from the CPA profession for, pretending to offer CPA services. So it's really important to say that you are collaborating with STEM for this. And like we have a marketing plan for that Kinga can share on demand. So like we have badges and logo of our company that you can add on your website, basically just as any other app logo that you are disclosing, such as like bookkeeping firm typically have a section to disclose the technology they're using, like Pluto, Dex, QuickBooks, WagePoint. So it's just adding stamp in this section to kind of really lay out the scope of your tech stack, basically. So this is a good opportunity to promote how you are working with STEM, basically.
Absolutely. So then with that, so if we have to do that on there, which again, we're all about transparency here. And I think most people these days are about being transparent. So do you then so we can tell clients verbally, but it's not necessarily in our engagement letters. Do you have a specific engagement letter that we would use that says, yes, like that we can use with the client that takes care of that? Or do you have wording that we should put into our existing engagement letters? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so good question. So it's actually like we need to have a distinct engagement letter. So remember earlier I was saying that we maintain minimal client relationship. So it means having a signed engagement letter with the client. So like when first creating the account on the stamped application, the customer will be prompt to sign the engagement letter with stamp, basically. So we have our own terms of agreement that comply with the CPA professional requirements. So yeah.
Okay,
and then that just be blended in with your engagement letter.
Okay, so then we don't have to put something into our engagement letter, because not every client, like I know I have my engagement letter, every client signs it. It's the same. And then I have my pricing part of it that kind of goes in. So if somebody decided, afterwards that okay, you know what, my CPA is retired, whatever, I now need somebody new, just using your engagement letter and them knowing, here's how we're doing it, your engagement letter would then suffice for, because I know, CPA, you're right, they have standards, and they are very strict standards at times, CPA Association. And so, so you are a member of them, so you do follow all of those criteria, and then that letter would be fine from us from that standpoint, correct then?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know. So it's been very quiet out there. Leslie's got lots of great questions. But it's very quiet. So like, ask more questions, guys. I can only talk so much. So in looking here then, so I see here, so I do want to, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, and this is not going to be a bad thing, but I'm going to, throw a hard question at you for a moment here. And this is, and it has to do more with the pricing that we can expect from everybody. Just keep that in mind at first. So, and Leslie's got another question we'll ask in a moment, which is great. Thank you, Leslie. So when we look at your prices, your compliance starts at $12.50. That is not your new compilation report. That is what other people, Kate is sharing. So that's, just sharing the question. So, so that price is higher than what we would have seen 6 months ago or a year ago. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that? And if you're struggling, I know the answer, so because we've talked about this, so I'll be able to help.
Yeah, so basically, as any young startup, we had to do like A/B testing with the pricing. So we started way too low, and also we were way too low compared to the market. So our goal is not to be the absolute cheapest alternative on the market, because we believe we provide a higher quality than than what we typically see on the market. So basically, the increase in prices is from lessons learned from past bad pricing, but also just the average increase in salary. So this is a reality we need to face. Hiring CPA is not a cheap deal anymore, and it has never been. But over the past few months, it's crazy, like how over the pandemic, like every basically profession has significantly increased. So yeah, it's just to reflect those two realities.
And I think the thing is, and this is what you've left out, that that this is essentially, now that NTRs are a thing of the past, this is like, there's no compliance. This is essentially kind of like your old NTR, and then you've got the new compliance level. And so this is what an accountant would be charging $1,500 to $1,600 for on average, for just a basic NTR, though. Like, that's kind of where I was going with this. Is that right?
Okay, yeah. So 1250 is mostly like only the corporate tax return, basically. So like the old NTR should not be in this world anymore. Like notice to reader are not, like, the name have changed, and like there should be no more notice to reader outstanding in the market from December 31st, 2021 and beyond. So this has really changed from notice to reader to compilation engagement, and there should be no more of that. So the old notice to reader is like the new compilation engagement on our website at 2,500.
Because there's a lot more work involved in that, right? For people who don't know, there's a ton more work that CPA has put in restrictions on you guys, correct?
Yes, exactly. And it's unfortunately for us, and how we have to explain the fees for the client, it's mostly like behind the scene. Like, those are not like changes that are customer facing, like unless a few differences in the wording. Like, a compilation engagement is pretty similar to an old notice to reader. It's really like on the business understanding and control environment that we need to document in our engagement file to make sure that we properly understand the reality of our client. So like, it's just an additional burden behind the scene for CPA. So.
And most clients, I would say, from our conversations, is most of our clients really need the 1250, which is something that they were traditionally getting, without the financial piece. But we've got QuickBooks Online. We can give them, after we enter the year-end adjusting entries, we can, as the bookkeeper, we can give them to them out of there after they're entered. And that will still suffice them for anybody that does not need a compilation report. And I'd say that's at least 75% of my clients.
Yeah, exactly. So like, the minimum requirement for any company out there is just to produce an annual tax return, and that's what they get with the 1250. And for bookkeepers that are, comfortable, preparing some sort of internal and financial information for their client, yes, it could be an upsell opportunity for them.
Yeah, well, and that's it. Yeah, well, you've got the management reporting, and you've got whatnot that is just essentially your P&L and your balance sheet to provide with that. No, and that's awesome. So Leslie's last question here is, who stands in for the audit? So if there's an actual audit, who's going to take care of that?
So it's our CPA on the team, and I'm the signatory for all assurance reports. So like, in every of our engagement, from compilation engagement, reviews, and audit, we provide, a signed financial statement report signed by me, and it's our internal team that, performs all of the audit procedures, basically. So it's
And that would be included if an audit comes in afterwards. Is that included in the cost of the T2 the T2 return, or is that only included in the audit level?
Sorry, I thought the financial statement audit, but she was talking about a CRA audit. So yeah, we will just provide
and I'm
support.
not sure, so we'll answer both questions, because I'm not sure what Leslie meant.
If it's a financial statement audit, obviously the audit is managed internally by our team of CPA. But if it's a tax audit, it's also like, it will be it's part of our fees. Basically, there will be no additional charge to support the clients and the bookkeeper to go through the CRA audit.
Awesome. Which, I mean, most of them are fairly easy as long as all the paperwork is there. It's just pull it and provide the source documents most of the time. So
yeah, technically, if you have supported tax position, it shouldn't be too hard to go through the CRA audit. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all depending on the, the state of the books. You said that earlier, right? So,
Yep.
All right. Well, looks like our time is up. So I don't know, Kinga, do you want to take back over
Yeah.
now? Awesome. So thank you very much, guys, for having me part of this. Thank you, Simon.
Thank
I
you,
hope,
Tanya.
I hope we, answered any questions that people might have in their mind. And I'm looking forward to testing it out and going forward. So Kinga, I give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was incredible. I hope everyone that joined got a lot out of that. I know I learned more. So that was awesome. But if you guys do want to know more or have any questions, you can visit our website at stamp.ai. You can email myself, k.jasic@stamped.ai. There will be a follow-up email. We will be posting this webinar. If you want to share it with anyone, feel free to do so. And we do have a referral program. So if you want to have a chat with us, we can definitely discuss that at your leisure. Other than that, I just want to say thank you for coming. Sorry, we went a little over time, but the content was too good not to. But yes, once again, thank you so much, Tanya. Like, you are just the best. Simon, thanks for joining us all the way from Quebec. This was incredible. And I hope everybody has an amazing day.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tanya, again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Take care. Bye.